patient has to know what they're going to pay, at least a really good idea. They can't plan their life if they don't know if they're going to owe $10 or $800. And they don't really realize that dental is not like medical and that we're not charging 800% more like for a doctor's appointment, that it's not like medical. So if you just tell them, like, we really estimate your copay is going to be $46 or $28.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tao. Hope everybody's having a great day whenever you're listening to this episode or viewing it on YouTube. I want to thank the sponsors, both Dental Intelligence and the doc sites, for their continued support, allowing me to come to your inbox every single Friday morning at 5 a.m. Eastern Time. This is season 8, and I'm really excited to continue providing content to my listeners and followers. I also wanted to mention to everyone about my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice, September 26th and 27th, 2025, this year in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at Pier 66 Resort, a brand new resort which just opened up. So it is literally a brand new facility with some great space for events. I'm looking forward to it. You can go to superchargeyourdentalpractice.com and use the code RAVING, RAVING, to save $100 on registration. Today's guest is Bri Richardson from Elevate My Practice, and we're talking about Dental Insurance SOS, which is the topic today. So Bri Richardson is a dynamic force in the dental insurance world. As the owner of Elevate My Practice and founder of Dental Insurance SOS, she has earned a reputation as a dental insurance specialist, speaker, coach, and trainer. With more than 15 years of experience in the dental industry, Bri combines deep expertise with a passionate energy that inspires dental teams to thrive. She's dedicated to helping practices get paid in full within 30 days while making insurance systems easy and painless. So please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, Bri Richardson. Bri, thank you so much for joining me today. I know we've been trying to record an episode for a really long time, and you finally got it on the calendar, so I'm looking forward to spend the next 30 minutes with you or so talking about how you help dental practices. So thanks for joining me. I'm excited, and I know you are too. So Bri, let's start off by really just telling practices how you help them, what you do for them if they hire you as a coach, consultant, helper, whatever you want to call it. What do you do for dental practices?
Well, first of all, I help them get the money that they produced in the door. So take your money from your AR report to your bank account the easy way and make insurance less painful, truly getting paid within 30 days from the insurance company and the patient the majority of the time.
So, and you, just to clarify, you don't do any insurance credentialing. I know we spoke about that before time. So if you're listening, she does not do insurance credentialing. Okay, we got that out of the way. But you also, and you also really coach the team. You don't actually do the work for the practices. Am I correct?
Yes, I own a training company and I empower your team to take the tools and implement them. I do insurance management for a couple of practices, but it's like a really tiny side. So it keeps me current, but I am able to help so many more through the training side, and it's so fun and exciting.
Got it. I'm glad we got that out of the way. I'm glad we made it clear of what you do and you don't do for practices. So you made a comment, and you also mentioned it in the bio that I read, that you help practices get paid in full in 30 days from the insurance company and the patient. So that's a very big statement, very bold statement. Can you kind of give an idea of how you operate and how you do that? How do you get practices to do that? Because AR in dental practices that especially take insurance is a cluster of problems. Okay. So let's start off by saying, how do you get them paid in 30 days?
Well, first of all, let me address the elephant in the room. There will be a percentage that does not pay in 30 days, but it should be small. And that might look different for different practices depending on your patient mix. If you have a ton of secondaries, you might have 5% that don't or 10% that don't, but the majority should be. And it really comes down to estimating copays accurately and foreseeing denials so that you can prepare the patient for their full responsibility on the front end and then submit the claims in a way that is going to make them pay in full the first time. If you get those two things down pat, your AR is going to start shrinking because by the time the insurance pays, there should be no balance.
Got it. So why do practices struggle with artificial AR, accounts receivable? What's the reason why when I work with practices that they have so much 90 days or later, which is very difficult to collect, and even ones that are not current, they're over 30 days. That's money that's hard to collect. And I know there's things in the office that they can do differently. So what do you think are the top few reasons that practices don't get paid in a timely manner?
Well, I want to first say that your front office team, they are hardworking soldiers that are doing their best, and this is not an attack on them. But if they haven't been trained the proper way, they don't know. So one of the problems is that truly front office team members, they don't really have requirements for CE. So they just sometimes get thrown in and get trained by the person before them who was trained by the person before them. So there could be little broken links in the chain that no one's really aware of that could be like a domino effect in making everything harder. So whenever I look at an aging report, the first thing I notice is the over 90. If that's super high and the insurance aging is probably high too in that case, but it always comes back to it's something with the copays and the treatment planning phase. They may not know how to efficiently estimate copays, so sometimes they're letting the patient schedule and then they leave, and then they take the time to do it all by hand. And these are front office team members that really care about accuracy, and they are really trying. But they don't always have a system in place to be able to foresee those codes that deny really easily, because like an insurance breakdown might be 15 pages long. And if you're looking through 15 pages while the patient is standing right here, it's not really realistic that you're going to catch everything you need to catch. So there is a way to distill it down so that you're looking at a really short list of things that you actually do in your practice that's abbreviated and not in legal speak, and be able to scan that against the treatment plan really quickly. And then the other reason it can be really high is it feels like the compassionate thing sometimes when we're not really sure about what the patient is going to owe is to collect less and bill them later. It feels like we're doing them a favor by, when in doubt, not charging it out, and we'll just see what happens. But in fact, the compassionate thing really is, let's prepare them for their full maximum patient responsibility on the front end. And if we're wrong and the insurance does come back and pay, great, we can refund them the same day, and they're so happy. But it's kind of a myriad of problems with estimating copays, and then this little bit of guilt that comes with just wanting to help the patient out. And then that same patient we helped out on the back end when they have a balance is mad at us and yelling at us about how we said insurance would pay when we know we didn't. So there's just a lot of little things, but they have really big impacts on the AR.
That makes a lot of sense. I have a couple of just quick questions. When someone is looking at their AR, their accounts receivable, what is a number that you should want to be at? Is it less than 1 month total collections? Where do you look from a healthy AR to an unhealthy AR?
So if you're looking at the total AR, which is like insurance usually is in there, and then patient, every balance or credit that's in the office is in that AR report. So you want 75% of that total number to be under 30 days old. And then you want at the very most 10% to be over 90. And I know that is not the case with almost any practice. Like usually there's a lot over 90, and I want to encourage you, like, just because it might be 54% today doesn't mean 6 months from now it has to stay 54%. You can develop a battle plan to get it under control, cut the dead weight, whatever you have to do, develop a rock solid collection protocol that gives your team an outline. Like, this is how I want you to handle it, because sometimes the team truly doesn't know what you want, and they're just kind of guessing, or they're so spread thin because they're trying to focus on accounts from 2018 to 2025 when they really could probably just focus on 24 and 25.
Got it. So that was one question I had. The other question I had is, what is the best way to estimate copays, especially out of network? We know that when you are in network, you basically have a website or form, something that tells you what the fee is that you have to accept, and then what the patient's copay is. That's easy. But when you're out of network, especially when you deal with companies like Delta Dental who don't want to give you any information, one of the things you said is I would say you want to overestimate, so you owe the patient money back versus the patient owing money to you. But what is the best way to estimate copays out of network? I think is a really good question here.
I love this question, and I love practices that are out of network that struggle with this, because honestly, we can take this way overcomplicated question and make it so easy. So I worked at an out-of-network practice two different ones, in office for 12 years. So this system actually works. I know for a fact, it's not a guess. If you just take your coverage table or whatever your software calls the percentages and drop those by, like if they say they pay 100%, put it in the computer as 80%. So drop it 20 points. If they say they pay 80%, put it in as 60%. And enter your maximums, enter your deductibles. Everything else is the same pretty much as an in-network setup, but except the percentages, you're dropping them. You still want to foresee the red tape restrictions by comparing them against the treatment plan and all of that. So the other part of this is that's your educated guess. So you're going to have some offices that have really high fees for your area. 20% or 20 points might not be enough. So in that case, maybe you try 20%, everybody still has balances. Okay, make it 30 points lower. Whatever you have to do. I have one practice that's in the South. They only have to drop theirs 10% because their fees aren't really high for their area. But 20%, from what I've seen training offices all over the country, is a pretty good place to start. So the first person attached to that group number with that specific code, it is an educated guess. But only the first one, because everybody else, when their insurance pays, you update the payment table line by line on the claim. So your blue book or your payment table, whatever your software calls it, tracks it for you at this point. It's like a fancy calculator. You don't have to do all this manually. But they track it for you. So the next patient with that exact same code, it's accurate. And none of them really give you the fee schedule out of network, but using that 20% drop it really works. And if they have a credit, it's not huge. It's like $20, $10. You can refund that on their credit card so easily. Most of the credit card machines will give you the percentage you paid back. And the patient's so happy. They're like, oh my gosh, get money back, great. Or they'll be like, can you leave my $10 on my account for next time? So you might have small credits, but in the scheme of things, you definitely want small credits compared to balances that you're chasing.
So two other follow-ups. One was something I forgot before, was one of the things when you talked about running the AR report, you mentioned it has all the balances owed, but it also has the credit balances. So in my opinion, when you run that report, if you want to get a true aspect of how your practice is looking, you need to remove the credit balances, because that's going to throw the AR off big time. That was something I learned as the business owner. The other question is, how do you handle this? And I'm curious, because I'm sure this is a training thing that you do. Someone says that their insurance pays 100% for a cleaning. Let's just use that, okay? If they're out of network, and you're probably going to pay less of a fee compared to your fee. Yes. How do you tell someone they owe money when it says it's covered 100%? I'm curious the verbiage you use for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So everything with insurance is just kind of retraining the patients, just like we have to be trained. So the patient doesn't know that it's 100% of what they allow. So my answer to that is, that's a really good question. They pay 100% of whatever their allowable is, which is different than our fee. So we estimate that your copay for that day is going to be $47. Can you come Tuesday or Thursday? But a lot of teams really get in their head about that question and they overcomplicate it or over answer. So it shouldn't sound like a line drawn in the sand, and it shouldn't sound like a sales pitch. Just make it sound like cool, collected, this is what we do every day, because it is.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. I just know that people are going to throw up in arms when they look at their percentages, and I was curious your thoughts on that. So
some of them will, and that's okay. Not everybody is going to be an out-of-network practice patient, but a lot of them still have free cleanings because insurance companies pay better out of network. Now, if you're in network, with like all the big ones, and then the ones that you're out of network with, you're like, well, that's not my experience. Yes, because the ones you're probably out of network with are the lower payers, which is probably why you're not in network in the first place. But the big ones, usually they pay really well, and the patients, a lot of times have free cleanings, or they pay like 10%. It's not a 60% difference.
And one of the tricks we learned is that if someone truly wants to know what the insurance is going to pay, you give them the codes that you're using, have them call the insurance company themselves and say, hey, I want to know what the UCR is in this area so I know if I'm going to have to owe any money, and they'll get the fees for you. That's the other way around that. That's what I learned. So
you could send a pre-D too, which I don't really recommend, but you could. And I think that it really comes down to just the patient has to know what they're going to pay. They have, or at least a really good idea. They can't plan their life if they don't know if they're going to owe $10 or $800. And they don't really realize that dental is not like medical, and that we're not charging 800% more like for a doctor's appointment, that it's not like medical. So if you just tell them, like, we really estimate your copay is going to be $46 or $28, and you probably, for the bigger groups, you're actually going to know their copay because you're going to have a payment table or blue book built. So you might actually know the fee, not an educated guess at that point. And it's like they either accept it or they don't, and that's okay if they don't. But it's the over explaining, and like anytime they think we're fumbling, they're converting that to dollar signs in their head. Like, they have no idea what I'm going to owe. That could mean I might not be able to pay my rent this month, when it really doesn't mean that usually.
Got it. 100% agree with you there. Let's talk about submitting clean claims. Okay, because clean claims is a problem. If you submit anything that's wrong, it kind of bounces everything back. I was going to ask you also about predeterminations. I've never submitted. I was out of network. I never submitted a predetermination in my life. I call it a pre-denial because it delays treatment. So I'm not a big fan of submitting any predeterminations at all. But talk about the importance of submitting a clean claim to get paid faster, I'm assuming.
Oh my gosh, submitting clean claims is easy too. It's so systematic, and I actually made a chart. If you email me, I will send it to you. It's free. And it just gives like the regular procedures for whatever practice, and it tells you what to attach. So there's certain things that they don't ask for all the time. I'm of the philosophy, like, if they've ever asked for it before, just send it the first time because they might need it. And most of the time, denials aren't really denials. They just need more information. And Travis Campbell, I went to one of his classes a couple years ago. He said that, I believe it was him, that he said like 75% of denied claims are never appealed. And that's what they're banking on. So Just give them everything they need the first time. Like, for example, a bridge. Submit a perio chart with a bridge. And most bridges don't need a perio chart. Most of them don't. But if there's any bone loss, that insurance company wants to know, does this patient have active periodontal disease? If they do, did you treat it? And they want to know about the longevity, especially anterior bridges. If there's like a lot of bone loss, you're probably not going to get it covered. So you want to kind of set yourself up for success from the beginning, and attaching a perio chart takes 2 seconds. Why not just send it the first time instead of having it delayed? Because then everyone that does insurance knows this. They ask for more information, and if you don't submit it exactly how they want, they'll deny it as a duplicate. And then now your claim is 60 days old with no payments.
Yeah, same thing when you do scaling root planing. When scaling root planing, you need to submit perio chart. You need to submit x-rays.
Exactly.
You got to submit that stuff. If you don't submit it, they're not going to pay it, and they're going to bounce it back, and it's going to get lost. Sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle if you do that. So when I was submitting claims or helping my practice submit claims, I made sure everything was done right the first time, because I don't want to wait for my money. It's that simple.
Can I make another comment about SRP?
Sure.
Okay, so not every company requires this, but Aetna for sure requires appointment length, and if you used anesthetic, they want to know that to process that claim most of the time. So in your practice management software, they all have a template for writing clinical notes. You can literally add that to your clinical note. If it's something you as the claim processor always needs to know, like, is this a replacement date? How long was the appointment? Instead of you having to go look up how long the appointment was, the hygienist, they can literally fill that out in 2 seconds. They just need to know that you need to know it. So make it easy for them.
I agree 100%. You mentioned Travis Campbell. Travis Campbell is very big on collections and making sure your collection protocol is really strong. So can you talk about what your rock solid collection protocols are? Because collecting money is not the most comfortable for the person at the front desk. They don't like asking, which I think is crazy. Just like people don't like asking for a review. Ask for the money that you're owed. They don't like asking for money. So can you kind of talk about your rock solid collection protocol?
Absolutely. So rock solid collection protocols work. Let me just first tell you a story. I had this practice that I helped about, it was almost 2 years ago, and they were struggling. They were collecting about 58 to 62% most months. Then we did a training. We implemented a rock solid collection protocol. 5 weeks later, they were at 102%, and they've been thriving ever since because their team absolutely was able to do it. They just needed to know what to do. So it starts with the mindset of like the patient is going to owe money, and the goal isn't for them to owe zero or owe the least. The goal is for them to be prepared. So if you want to be creative, be creative on the financing, but not on the treatment planning side. Still do what they need to do. The rock solid collection protocol is then a list of basically like instructions. It's just outlining what you want to happen. So I actually made a template for this. I make it for every practice I train pretty much. I make them one. But I noticed that this was such a problem. I just made it on a Google form where like you can answer it yourself. It's free. Email me. I'll send it to you. And it's like, when do you want your team to get the insurance breakdown? Well, hopefully that's on the phone before they get in there, or if they're scheduling online, like 24 hours after you have the insurance information, you should have the insurance breakdown, because you don't want the patient to be coming in for their appointment, giving you their card, and now it's one of those really terrible portals and you have to be on the phone for 40 minutes and they're already being seen and don't know what their copay is. So it just gives them instructions. And then it's like, when do you want us to collect? Some dentists want you to collect when they schedule. Some dentists want you to do half and half for these procedures. Some dentists are like, no, everything on the date of service, but I definitely want it when the patient walks in, not when they walk out. Whatever you want, put it on your collection protocol so your team knows. And then what do you want them to do when insurance pays? What technology do you have to send e-statements? Can you set it up so that it will auto send, like set it and forget it, like every 5 days it sends them a statement? People are used to constant reminders. In 2025, they want reminders. So the once every 30 days thing is obsolete for billing. We have to tell them more. But can your team do that every 5 days? Probably not. So if you have a set it and forget e-statements thing, set it up once and then forever it's perfect, and get those statements rolling. And then have the next level. Okay, it's 30 days old now. The patient didn't pay. They've been getting e-statements every 5 days. Now I want you to mail and call. And then I want you to mail and call in 60 days. And it just tells them exactly what to do and when. And then the last stage, which is cutting the dead weight. If there are people that are years old that you are not getting that money for, your team is wasting time. And those statements or those payments they could have gotten on the current ones, they're not able to spend time on because they're worried about all these others. So at that point, are you writing it off as bad debt? Are you sending it to a collection company? If you are sending it to a collection company, you might have a team member that trained a team member that isn't there anymore that knew how to do it, but put it on there. Like, what are the instructions? Who qualifies? If it's over this dollar amount, then what do you do in the ledger? Is there a pop-up? Do you cancel appointments? Just give them everything they need to know to be successful. And literally, if you implement also on the different stages, like accountability and checks and balances, where more than one person is responsible for these things, you will see your AR transform before your eyes, because your team wants to do what you want them to do. They just don't always know what you want or how to do it.
Makes a lot of sense, and that was a great little rant there. I like that. That's really good. So the final question I had for you was, I think that, there's a lot of new technology that's out there that can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, that can assist with a lot of the tasks that you're talking about here. Obviously, your practice management software, whatever you're using, usually has some billing feature to set up the auto billing like you talked about. Obviously, once you set it up and you set it up properly, it just works. But
Yeah.
is there other technologies in this space that you recommend? Maybe insurance verification, if you have that. I know insurance verification, or anything related to the billing process. When I was in practice, I used an automated billing service called Abella, and Abella did sent to the patients I wanted who were overdue. They did all the follow ups and stuff, helped out. So, is there any technology that you can talk about that you're familiar with that can help in this space?
So now that you brought up Abella, that is the one that I recommend when whatever they already have doesn't have that feature. Abella is nice because they have this, it's like a standalone, and you don't have to purchase appointment confirmations and texting and review. Like it's a standalone where you can just do the billing. So that's what I really like about Abella. But before you buy an add-on, make sure what you already are paying for doesn't have it, because it probably does. And I know that there's like an extra fee, and that's another kickback I hear about it, or some resistance is like, well, that's another couple $100s a month. But if you actually get the money in the door and you might have a couple $100,000 on your AR, that's going to pay for itself many times over and reduce so much stress. For insurance verification, this is not one that I've used myself, but I have really good hopes for it, and I have an office that I trained that uses it, and they're really happy. There's an AI called Stratus that calls, and the person thinks it's a person, and they get the insurance breakdown for you. And then I think it uploads it into your system. I'm waiting for one. Hey, tech people, this is what I want. I will support you forever. I'm waiting for one where you can have a customized insurance breakdown that's distilled down to just what the practice needs, and sets up the software the right way with the percentages and the maximums and deductibles, and then stores the notes how you want them to be stored. Because when you just upload everything to the document center, this goes for most people do this by the document center, like people, not just AI stuff. That only helps that one patient. But if you connect it all to the group, you might have 200 patients that work at the same hospital or the same ISD. You don't have to do all that work 200 times. You can do it once if you put it all on the group. Oh my gosh, so exciting. So that's my answer.
Got it. No, great answers. Bri, is there anything else, as we kind of run short on time here, is there anything else that we haven't discussed? Any topics that you want to bring up before we switch to the lightning round Q&A?
Yes, there was just one more company that I forgot to mention on that question. Vine. If you're looking for a clearinghouse, I feel like Vine is becoming a front runner, especially since all that stuff happened with Change Healthcare. They've really stepped up and filled in the gap and became a solution for a lot of people. If you have someone newer, especially, that doesn't really know how to submit a clean claim, Vine makes it really hard to submit dirty claims because they flag them, they tell you what the claim needs, and when you click send, it'll hold them back and won't let them go through. So that's my other, the one that I like.
Got it. Perfect. No, that was great. So let's switch. For those that haven't listened, if you're a new listener, I do a lightning round Q&A with the guests. I ask them 8 to 10 questions. It's business related. And the goal here, Bri, as I like to tell all my guests, is to answer these pretty quickly. No long run-on sentences here. Just answer the question. Okay? So we're going to go through these. It's all random. So what book do you want to go back and reread as it's made a great impact on you the very first time you read it?
Defining You by Mark LeBlanc.
Defining You by Mark LeBlanc. I know you work with Mark. I did it as well. Mark's a great business coach for those who are looking for business coaches. Do you keep a journal, and does it help you?
I don't keep a journal.
Okay. What distracts you the most every day?
Oh my gosh. Ideas.
Okay. What would you say are the 3 skills that have made you a successful entrepreneur?
Being good at networking, being good at communicating, and being tech savvy.
Good answers. What has been your most satisfying moment in business?
The freedom that it gives me scheduling wise.
Okay. What 3 adjectives describe your strengths?
Skip.
Skip. Nobody skips the question, Bri. Not allowed.
I am tenacious, excited, and motivated.
See, you came up with three good. That works perfectly. That works perfectly.
I want to overthink that question.
Nothing to overthink. Describe Mondays for you in one word.
I look forward to them now. Oh, one word. Fun.
Okay. Who is one person you love to have as a mentor?
Ooh. That's hard. Jesus.
That's the first time Jesus' name has come up, but that's okay. When you were a kid, what was the first thing you wanted to be when you grew up?
A cashier.
A cashier. Interesting. Okay. What profession do you think is the most undervalued today?
Oh, undervalued? Probably nursing.
Okay. Do you make a to-do list? If you do, every day, every week, what do you do?
I make a to-do list when I need to brain dump. Only.
Okay. What methods do you use to stay focused?
Do not disturb on my phone.
That's a good one. A lot of people don't use that, but that's a good one. What do you wish you had known when you first started out?
Oh, man. I wish I knew how awesome it would be and started sooner.
Okay. 2 questions more. I like that answer. How do you define success?
I define success as freedom. It's about freedom of being able to do what you want to do, when you want to do, and freedom to do what you love.
Great answer. Last question I ask this to everyone because I think it's an awesome question. What is one subscription, either business or personal, that you cannot live without?
Adobe.
Which Adobe product? All of them?
The basic one that allows you to edit whatever you're working on.
Got it. That's the first time I've heard Adobe. I've heard, obviously, the Bible someone just mentioned. I've heard, obviously, Amazon Prime, Slack. It's interesting that the people come up with things, but I haven't heard the one you said. But that's good. I
make a lot of forums for people.
That's good. So, Bri, you were an awesome guest. How can people reach out to you if they want to learn more about how you can help their dental practice?
Thank you so much. My email is Bri, B-R-I, @elevatemypractice.com. And I would love to connect.
Okay. And do you have a website that they can go to? Do you have some place so that if they want to find out more information, they can go to as well?
Absolutely. Elevatemypractice.com. And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook as Elevate My Practice.
Awesome. Well, Bri, this was a great episode. We provided a lot of great content, a lot of pearls for the listeners. So I hope they enjoyed it. Guys, if you liked what you heard, please reach out to Bri. She gave her contact information. She's on social media. She's very responsive. She's very easy to get a hold of. It was a lot of information provided. If you liked the episode, please share it. Please like us. Please review us. Do everything you can to help promote the episodes. We're in season 8 now, so lots of episodes to catch up on. I want to thank the sponsors again, both Dental Intelligence and the Doc Sites, for their support, and remind everybody about my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice, coming back to South Florida in 2025. It's at Pier 66. You can go to superchargeyourdentalpractice.com and use the code RAVING to save $100 on registration. And one last time, I want to thank you, Bri, for being an amazing guest, and thank you so much for joining me today on the Raving Patients podcast. And as I end every single one of my episodes, remember, your reputation matters. Till the next episode, thanks so much, guys. We'll talk to everyone soon.
Thank you.